So I know that these types of mediums have their limitations, but it's also a way to get together when so much of us are sequestered in our homes. And even though it doesn't fully replicate the kind of series that we have in our meeting room, it is a way to get together. And I always feel really good that we can do these kinds of things. And I'm very, very grateful for it. So thank you all for being here. I just think this is very, very lovely. So yay. So Dwight contacted me a couple of weeks ago to do this. And I said, don't you want more than a couple of weeks? We want to do all this outreach, blah, blah, blah. Turned out we didn't really need to. We have, a full house tonight. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jennifer Wortkin, the director of the Wellfleet Library, and Dwight Esty, the president of the Historical Society and Museum. And the two of us, do you see Steve Broker? I don't know how I shared your screen by accident. Let me stop doing that. Oh my goodness.
Can you hear me now, Jennifer?
I can. Are you all seeing this weird thing that I'm seeing?
Well, I'm seeing my name printed out. I'm seeing your face. And is that Dwight as well?
Yes.
Okay.
I stayed.
Are you all seeing a screen? Or are you seeing a participant?
I had your screen, and then I clicked on something, and I've only got you in a small view now.
Yeah, Steve Broker?
Yes.
Why am I viewing your screen? This should not be possible because I turned off that.
If you go to view options, it says exit full screen. Does that help? No, it doesn't.
All right.
Okay, that looks better.
That does look better. I will now mute everybody again. I do not know what happened. I think I did not allow participants to share screen. That's what I did. I did not undo that. All right, nobody's gonna be able to do that again. All right, so here we go. We are going to begin with, in this event, talking about the Strawberry Festival and the 4th of July, and Dwight is going to facilitate the beginning of those conversations. Because we have so many people and we have a couple of pages worth of people, I'm going to ask you to be patient and allow me to see who is raising their hand and kind of take you in order. It is much easier for me to see you raising your hand if you use the raise hand feature in Zoom. And you can find that if you are on a regular computer. If you scroll to the bottom of your screen and you hover and you see where it says participants, and then under that, there's a little icon for raising your hand. And if you are on a device, if you touch the device screen, you will see a option.
I saw you, or I saw your name. Yeah. Yeah, she's muted people, but.
All right. So, Dwight. Why don't you go ahead and start this conversation?
Certainly. First of all, I want to thank everyone who's here, and especially Jennifer. She's got the hard job trying to watch everyone and keep everybody involved. I want to give you just a couple of museum updates before we start, because things change daily. If you drive by the museum, you've seen a lot of things going on. We did have water brought into the building, both for fire suppression and domestic water. We had a brick courtyard installed, and we reused the memory bricks, which people were concerned about. And Ponderosa did an excellent job of using those memory bricks in a way that everybody can see. In the near future, we'll be working on the period garden and having some trees put in front of the museum. Hopefully be able to return that seckel pear that so many people love to the front of the museum. In the backyard, we put the fire siren. People might not know the history of that, but John Connors, our vice president, has been working on a tablet to explain that. The old bell from the Congregational Church is back there, and at some point a herb garden will be added. There have been a lot of donations to the museum lately. I just got over 50 maps from the Truro Historical Society that are Wellfleet maps, so they thought they were better at our museum. Got the Southern Wharf sign, which if you know Old Wharf Road in Wellfleet, the wharf was not called Old Wharf, it was called Southern Wharf, and we've just got that sign. Benneker fireplace surround. We've got some glass plate photos that have recently been donated. Claire Layton print, which we've restored, and an incredible old map from Bound Brook. We've got a couple of things coming. We just received a $200,000 matching grant from the Massachusetts Cultural Council, and in October we'll be for town meeting, aiming for October, I think, possibly getting $350,000 from the CPC also to continue to rehab the center section of our museum. We're going to open on the 22nd of July, and we have a new special exhibit which will focus on 1620 and before. And because a lot was going on in Wellfleet before the Pilgrims arrived, and we have artifacts that go back 10,000 years. So some people might be interested in seeing what happened in Wellfleet 10,000 years ago. Not quite sure of everything, but we do have some artifacts that from that time. So fortunate to have Robin Parkinson as a board member, and he's the one that does our special exhibits, and the entire board's done a tremendous job in trying to put together this pre-1620 exhibit. When we open on the 22nd, our hours will be limited to Wednesday through Saturday, 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock. The good news is we have a lot of docents that are just waiting and willing to help us interpret Wellfleet history for you. We do so much to make this a safe environment. We ask that you wear masks and practice social distancing. We will provide masks for those that don't have one. Our museum is basically a touchless experience, but for those that want the extra precaution, we will provide hand sanitizer. So again, I want to thank you for coming. And I want to start by acknowledging the passing of Richmond Bell. You know, Richmond's father, Clarence Bell, was a town doctor in the early 1900s. And so he's a story in himself, but Richmond lived on Main Street in the family house, and The Cape Cod Times published a tremendous tribute to him. And on behalf of the Wellfleet Historical Society Museum, I sent out a message to membership that went out today, kind of a feeble attempt to show what he meant to this town, because I've got to tell you, words do not explain what a person's life is. And so, you know, I hope those people that are members got to see that. And if not, I do want to make sure that if there's anyone out there that has a story to relate about Richmond, I know I have a bunch, and a lot of people out there know him even better than I do. So is there anyone that would like to join the conversation?
I just want to say before you go on that that Gail Bell wrote to me right before this meeting to say that Rich's children might be here: Andrea Slade, Randy Bell, John Bell, Faith Lee, and her children, Michelle Edmonds, Leslie Gannon, Trey Gannon, and Lindsay Carmichael on this call. So I think there's a big Bell presence here.
And that's great to see. I thank them for coming. You know, I certainly can't explain what he meant to me, because I wouldn't want to, because certainly what he meant to them is so much more. So I hope people are ready to join in the conversation. And you know, this is going to be about celebrations, Strawberry Festival, 4th of July, and I just think of him, and when I think of him, I think of the 4th of July, and I think of him in antique autos, because that was such a big part of his life. So if there's anyone that would like to join in, please feel free to do so.
Oh, so you're responding, and then, but you won't get called. The kids will get called first.
Dwight, I don't know if am I unmuted? This is Dan.
You know,
I just, first of all, to Gail and to Richmond's family, I want to say our sincere sympathies. I had the privilege of working with Richmond in 2 different venues. One, obviously, on the fire department. When I joined the fire department in 1982, Richmond was, I think he was deputy chief by then, but he was my squad leader for probably at least the first 10 or 15 years that I was on the department. And then the other relationship I had with him was in relation to his antique car business. He came to me sometime in the, probably in the mid 70s, and asked if he thought I could make some of the wooden parts that he sold through his business. So over the next probably 20 years or so, I made floorboards and mounting blocks, a bunch of different parts, and it was really fun to work with him. I made floorboards, I think specifically for the 1931 Model A, and I told him I had to do them in batches of 15 because that was the only way I could do them efficiently without a lot of waste. And I went back and looked at my records, and I think he ordered about 20 batches of 15 over the years, which was really phenomenal if there are that many Model A's out there running around. But it was a fun relationship, and just working with Richmond both on the department and that relationship, I really enjoyed it. He will be missed.
Thank you.
For that. Does anybody else have, I'm looking for other hands, or Faith. Now I can't. Uh-oh, now I have a new problem, which is I see in my chat that somebody has their hand up and I can't find them. Faith, can you unmute yourself and talk? She said she had no idea about her making parts. How fascinating. So, and that's actually why I'm another thing I meant to say is if people just want to make points or ask questions, but they don't want to be either on video or talking, feel free to put it in the chat,
camera on this.
and I'm happy to. Okay, John Bell, you have your hand up.
All right. You hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Just wanted to tell a quick story about my father. He was election warden for many years. And one election night, things were going late, and it was clear he wasn't going to come home for dinner. So my mother packaged up a meal and gave it to me to bring over to him at the town hall to the counting room. And I got to the counting room, and I was knocked on the door, but he would not let me in because as election warden, he didn't want anybody in the room that wasn't supposed to be there. All I could do was pass the meal to him through the doorway and peek in to see what the guys were doing. And then he closed the door and I had to go. He was very, very, very concerned about election, and being very secure about that. So it's just something I remembered from my childhood.
So no special treatment from within the family. One of the things that Richmond did, he would come down Main Street, of course, every day, and go down to the marketplace, and then he would come home. So when I was at the museum, if I saw him headed toward the marketplace, I was just waiting to entrap him on his way home so that I could get another story. So I'd see him headed back up, and I'd come out of the museum and stop him. And of course, that's probably what he was waiting for, because those stories were priceless. We took a lot of heat originally when we painted the museum that odd yellow color. We had a historian come in and research, and she came up that was the original color. But it was the fact that Richmond remembered when a lot of houses were that color in Wellfleet. And he said, oh, not only did he know that that color was correct, but he knew the painter who lived across the street from him. And he also had that painter, when he was a young boy, took him to South Wellfleet to show him where the ochre swamp was, because the pigment was from the ochre swamp in South Wellfleet, kind of near where Payne's campground was. So he saved us on that one, because he related that to John Connors, our vice president. And if Richmond Bell said that paint color was correct, everybody agreed, and that was it. So we're happy he agreed with that color.
Great. Anybody else? Sue? Sue, you're muted. Can you unmute yourself? There you go.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Sue, and I had the privilege of being on the fire department for 10 years, and Richmond was my squad leader. And I don't ever remember him not being level-headed and upstanding and fair. You could always go to him for an opinion, or if you had a problem, you could always go and he'd fix it. He was a true gentleman. My other story is my mother had a beauty parlor on Main Street, and Mrs. Bell would come and have her hair done, but once every 3 or 4 months, Richmond would come to the beauty parlor, and he would talk to my mom, and he would ask her what he could order and how much it would cost for her to come in as a surprise to get her hair done. And I used to live down in the beauty shop, and it was very rare to have a man come in, but I remember Richmond, and he would always be so quiet, and I just thought it was the cutest thing that he would do that for his wife. So thanks.
That's lovely. Is there anybody else? Carol, can you unmute? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all unmuted. First of all, my husband Dennis, who's sitting next to me, remembers buying antique Model A parts from Richmond. But I also particularly remember Richmond's kindness. I was tasked with writing the history of Preservation Hall, you couldn't write anything about history of the Wellfleet without approaching Richmond, who was very kind enough to give up his time, although he really didn't have much connection with the Catholic Church. But his wife Jean did, and he told me the story of Jean playing the organ in the church, and also being the person who picked out the new organ in 1975. So Richmond always had a story about everything and was very generous in sharing it. And I will always remember that. Thank you.
John O'Sullivan.
Hi, everybody. So my story goes back a few years, I guess. My dad and Richmond were very good friends. My dad died about 22 years ago. But, and for years I had to listen to stories from my dad talking about Richmond. Just a true gentleman. So this goes back to the September of 1954. And Andrea and Randy were probably there when this happened. And the story goes, don't remember much of it, but the story goes that my dad and mom were down the Cape, and Richmond and Jean and the kids decided that we would go for a ride. And so we hopped in the back of one of those Model Ts or whatever and went for a ride. And basically in those days, as you recall, you could drive down to Nauset and get on the beach and just keep driving until you couldn't go any further. Evidently they went out and had a picnic, and on the way back, I guess, there was a flat tire, quickly followed by another flat tire. And about that time, my mother went into labor, and something must have happened right, because I actually was born in a hospital. But that's a story that my dad told every time I ever came to Wellfleet.
Wow. Okay, I don't think I see any more hands. Oh, George.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rich's grandson, Randy Bell's son. So Dwight, when you were talking about the 4th of July and Grandpa, I used to, as a kid, I got to ride in the rumble seat of the coupe every summer for the 4th on the parade. And those are some of the best memories of my childhood. Just Grandpa's antique cars and getting to be a part of the family and be up on the Cape and be in Wellfleet. Wellfleet's such a special place. So that is all I had.
Thank you. Michelle? Can you unmute yourself? Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to say what a gift it was to our family to be able to visit Mom and Rich in Wellfleet. And it was a place that we weren't familiar with in the beginning. And Rich's pride in Wellfleet really engaged all of us. And just going into his shop, I feel is a treasure to the town. It's like going back, I think, in Wellfleet's history, and he's preserved so many things so carefully there that it really is truly a visual wealth of, I think, the history of the area. To me, I consider it a bit of a shrine, a beautiful spot, and it was really a great honor to know him and to see his pride in all of the different ways that he had been involved in his community. So really an inspiring person.
Thank you. I think John had something, and then Gail, you could.
Actually, it's Janice, his daughter-in-law.
Ah, well, I can't see because.
Yeah, we're trying to get, there's a camera on the iPad and we can't get it to work for some reason.
Right.
But funny story was, sorry, George, that first of all, my daughter and son-in-law got to ride in the rumble seat a couple of years ago. And that was my son-in-law's first time in anything like that, and he loved it. But one 4th of July, all the grandkids were riding in the double A truck.
Yep, Big Ben.
Big Ben, the double A truck. And Faith was with all the kids, and John's driving, and
I was driving the touring car.
he was driving the touring car. I'm sitting in the passenger seat, and I had 2 friends who were up from, they were visiting from like Falmouth or somewhere, Hyannis. And all of a sudden, Faith is making like a dripping looking thing, signaling that the car was overheating. Well, my father-in-law made it known to us that that was the first time anyone's overheated any one of his old cars. And John knows how to drive them. I drove for 35 years, we drove them. But he has but Rich made it known that his son, sorry, he's giving me the stink eye right now. His son overheated one of his cars, and that was the first time. I don't know if you remember that, Faith. But that was my story. It was a fun summer. Every summer, 4th of July was always a new experience.
Faith does not remember that.
I'll remind her later on.
She thinks you're making it up.
Yeah, no, not making it up. Sorry, sis.
Gail, I think you had something to say.
Well, you know, Rich and I always said how lucky we were to meet each other. We met each other on the bike trail in Eastham. We were the only 2 people on the bike trail. It was a gray day, and it was May 6th, and we were at a stop sign, and we stopped and talked for about 45 minutes. And as we were going to leave, Rich said, you know, he said, it can be lonesome living alone. He said, how would you like to go out to dinner? And I said, that would be nice. And so anyway, we went out to dinner and we got married. And but prior to that, the first time I met Christina Bell, who's Rich's daughter, who died almost 3 years ago, she said, you know, my mother, Jane, and Rich's second wife, Pat, thought that they arranged the meeting for you and Rich to meet. Jean and Pat arranged the meeting for you and Rich to meet. And the other thing I just wanted to say is, you know, a lot of times Rich and I would dance before we went to bed at night. And then the Monday before he died, he put on I Love You Because by Jim Reeves. And he could barely stand up, but he could still dance.
Wow.
Just a wonderful person, honestly. And I want to thank everybody for the cards and the letters and the emails and, you know, such wonderful tributes to Rich. And, you know, he would say cards started coming, of course, in the last 6 weeks or before he died. And, you know, he would say, I'm just an ordinary person. And then I would say, but you did some extraordinary things. So he was an ordinary person and he did do extraordinary things. And yeah, it was wonderful that he lived long enough to hear that from a lot of people, you know, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gail.
Thank you, Dwayne and Jennifer.
Okay, I'm looking through. We now have 3 pages of people on here. I do not see any more hand. Oh, I do. Trey.
Sure. Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, Dwight. It was a beautiful article today. I appreciated reading that. One thing that I'd just like to share with this group that I think was a source of pride to Rich, and I'm not sure, maybe most know it, but he was exceptionally proud of saying that he bought his first car when he was 8 with a friend. And they kept it over on the seashore side. So I think in or around Gull Pond or something like that, and that they sort of drove all of those sort of sand roads to learn how to drive, and had that car for quite some time. I think that was one of the beginnings of his fascination with with cars. It lasted a lifetime. And so I think the neat thing as well is that he was able to turn that then into his career, which 2 things, passion for cars and his work life, merged. So I think that was a great source of happiness.
Thank you.
Yeah, Wellfleet was pretty famous for its woods cars. And so having a car at 8 wasn't that strange, apparently, in this town. I grew up on a farm where we drove tractors as soon as we could sit on a seat. But the stories from Wellfleet are pretty great. I have one more story, and that has to do with walking tours. And I give a walking tour in town sometimes, and some of our other people do as well at the museum. And of course, you always stop at Clarence Bell Square and you look at the house, and you talk about Clarence's life. And if Richmond overheard me and he disagreed with anything that I said, suddenly the front door would open and he would come out and I would be corrected. As sure as I was that I was correct, I was not about to dispute Richmond when it came to anything that had to do with his father. And my favorite story about he and his father had to do with making a special trip. They had to go. He went with his father when his father had to go to Eastham in the middle of the winter to care for someone. And right near what used to be Rookies, the snow drifts would be so great that you couldn't get through. So he and his father got to those snow drifts and there was nothing they could do to get through. And then suddenly the train went by. And of course the train made it through the drifts. And so his father drove around and got on the train tracks and followed the train on the train tracks all the way to make his visit. So, and Richmond was in the car with him, so he was able to relate that story. Just you can't make stuff like that up. So, what a tremendous story that was.
Faith says Dad would remember which year each of his 5 children was born by what car he bought around that time. And he remembered me by the '64 Ford Mustang.
That's a pretty good thing to be remembered by.
Yep. Anybody else? Faith agrees.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm just so blown away by everybody's tributes. And so we did say that we would talk about, we've got a little bit of time left, and 4th of July, of course, is one of the things we remembered Richmond for. But I'm just wondering if anyone else has special 4th of July stories. Mine only go back to '75. 1975 was the first year that I spent the summer. Arlene and I had just gotten married and started spending our summers on the Cape. We lived in North Attleboro. But we lived on the Cape every summer because we were teachers. And so I remember that very first summer going and sitting where the railroad tracks used to go under Holbrook Avenue. And there's a white railing there. We sat on that railing that summer. And I think I've only missed 3 times since then. And only because I was in the parade instead of watching the parade. The first one was just so funky. I just can't explain the change between what I was used to and what a Wellfleet parade was, but I wouldn't miss it for the world. And this year I had to miss it for the world. But anybody else have any 4th of July stories they want to relate?
Well, George Bell had his hand up.
Yeah, I had just a quick question. So I remember probably around 2010 or so, my dad and Rich did a series or a speaking engagement at the library where they told stories about Wellfleet. And I was wondering if those movies still existed and if there was a way that maybe Jennifer, you could share those.
Were they, do you know if they were filmed?
I think so, and I think they were done at the library.
Well, I'm gonna be up next.
Okay, what I'll do, let me write that down. What I'll do is Betsy filmed them, then we do have them.
Okay.
I will take a look at them and we can, maybe I have someone here who could probably digitize them.
Okay.
And I'll see if I could figure that out and get that information to you.
Okay.
Or to everybody. I think that would be a really cool thing. I actually had a recommendation from somebody who I'm surprised is not here tonight, that to maybe show some of these old films during the summer while there is not a whole lot to do, because there's so much historical Wellfleet magic on some of these films. And they are on DVD, and I do have the capacity to do that. So let me figure that out. And first for that, and then for Rich, and then just in general, looking through them and see what we have, the treasure trove. All right, John, did you have something?
Yeah, actually 2 things. One, I do have those videos that George just mentioned. Digitized it on my video server, and George, I will send you copies. Secondly, Dwight, you were talking about the railroad track running under Holbrook Avenue. When I was very young, I remember my father lifting me up. We were sitting on the back porch of our house. He lifted me up and he said, "Take a look, there's the last train you'll ever see going through Wellfleet." And I remember seeing that train go by. Didn't quite understand it at that young age, but I remember seeing it. And then later, as a young child, playing in the backwoods behind the house, going to the railroad tracks and seeing, actually going under, through where the tracks were, because they'd ripped them up by the time I was able to venture out that far from home. But going under the tunnel to the other side of the Holbrook Avenue. And then over my childhood years, I saw them fill that in, and I remember that area quite well.
In what year do you remember that being?
I'm not sure because I was very young. I'm guessing I was probably under 5 years of age, so I make it pre-1963.
Okay, because we have pictures in 1960. Of them tearing up the track where it crossed the main highway.
You wanted 2 years old.
No, he was talking about the main highway, but I would have seen the train going through around that time. But
yeah,
I don't know when they took up the track by Holbrook.
Yeah,
I have another 4th of July story though. My first 4th of July. This New Yorker comes in like a tornado into the Bell family. My first 4th of July, and I love seafood. Rich went to me, I'm told the best lobster roll is at this restaurant called PJ's. I don't eat lobster roll, but that's what I'm told. He goes, but their clam chowder is the best you'll find on the Cape. And every time we go to the Cape, we go to PJ's. In fact, not the last time, the time before that, I couldn't make it up to the Cape. But John and my son Scott went up and they brought me back PJ's lobster roll. It's just something that I remember, and it's something we did for 35 years after that. So just a lot of little memories we have.
Thank you.
4th of July, anyone?
What was everybody's favorite thing to see on the 4th of July? I know one thing we don't see anymore that we used to, of course, were there were a lot more horses. I have a picture from the
Horses?
50s.
I don't remember any horses.
I have a picture of the 50s when the Wellfleet Historical Society had a couple of people in a wagon, but there was not a horse that could pull the wagon, so the wagon was pulled by a car. There were plenty of horses in town, but not one that would pull a wagon. But I do remember plenty of horses in the parade. I also remember when the antique cars were part of the regular parade, but of course they would break down. And so that's when they started to put the antique cars before the parade. So they didn't have to go slowly and break down in the middle of town.
Yeah, just say hi.
Hello, this is Randy.
Uh,
Can you hear him?
who is
Can you hear me?
talking?
This is Randy.
Randy Bell.
Oh, hi. We can hardly hear you.
Okay, well, I'll try to speak up a little bit. Is that better?
Yep.
Hi, Randy.
Hey there. So anyway, we're talking about 4th of July, and I can remember when I was very young, my parents would put us to bed. At that time, it was just Andrea and I and maybe Tina. And then around 11:30, they'd get us up and wrap us up. We'd still have our pajamas on. We'd get into the car and he'd take us down to Mayo Beach, because in those days, we're talking in the middle 50s, they were still doing the town bonfire. And what they would do is take a couple of telephone poles, stick them in the ground, ring the telephone poles with tires, put an outhouse on top, soak it with gasoline, and at the stroke of midnight, they'd throw a match on it. And this thing would burn all day long. It was this huge, tall fire. And then, of course, you'd have the parade at 10 o'clock. And then in the evening, you'd have the fireworks. And in those days, the fireworks were shot off by Charlie Frazier up on top of Cannon Hill. So the fireworks were literally over your head. And while the fireworks were being shot off, Dad and the firemen were selling soda and popcorn at the fire station. So I'd always go down and coerce Dad into giving me a soda and a popcorn, and then go back and watch the fireworks. But it was so much fun to watch the fireworks because they were so close to you, and not like today where there's always 4 to 5 things going off simultaneously. In those days, there was always a 4 to 5 minute wait between each firework shot, and you could hear it coming out of the chute. And so there was a great amount of anticipation for the show, and they always ended with one big bang. And I remember sometimes it would break windows in town. But the 4th of July was really a great day for little kids.
A lot of people are reminiscing in the chat about that.
Yeah, it was really a lot of fun. And then I also, we're talking about the Model A coupe. I remember the coupe when I was young was in an unrestored state, so it didn't look nearly as nice as it did recently. And Dad and I would just take off and we'd be driving up and down back roads. He taught me all the back roads. And I can remember as just a really small child, we'd be driving around, running over little trees and stuff. And And I remember a couple of times we were driving on roads that were so slanted, I was sure the car was going to tip over. And Dad's like, nah, no problem. We'll keep going. And and I also, when I got to be a little bit older, I ended up owning a Jeep, an old Willys Jeep. And I used to drive those same roads and stuff. And I think it was people like Dad and me that kept these roads open for all these years because not that many people drove them. But Dad knew every dirt road in town. And as somebody was talking about how when he was young, he had a free reign of driving. And if I recall the story correctly, the police chief in Wellfleet at that time was Elmer Wiles, the father of Dad's best friend, John Wiles. And Elmer told the boys, he said, well, you can drive from Pete down to Orleans as long as you stay on the ocean side of Route 6. If I see you on the other side, you're in trouble. So, but they had great opportunity to drive all over the place in those days because there were so many dirt roads servicing that part of town. So he had just the free reign. And another great story that Dad used to tell was back when he was young, the Coast Guard station at Cahoon's Hollow was still up and running. And on Tuesday afternoons at 2 o'clock, they would do the breeches buoy exercise where they would drag out the breeches buoy, shoot the cannon off, set up a tripod, and set up a rope on a high post. And they would let the little kids like Dad and his other friends ride in the breeches buoy because they needed weight in it to simulate a person being in there. So Dad got a chance to be in that as they did their practice sessions on Tuesdays. And sounds to me like a real blast. I wish they were doing that when I was a kid.
Well, Faith says that 4th of July was a bigger holiday in your family than Christmas.
Oh, I would say so, pretty much.
Sounds like it. Gail says that she loved the parades here because they're so ragtag, where other Cape Cod 4th of July parades were so organized. They had big bands, but not here. You could join the parade at the last minute. They were a little political and a lot of fun.
Yeah, they were very organic. They, whatever you felt like doing, you could do it and trot yourself out there and run up and down the street. And, it was always so interesting because you never knew what you were going to see. There was no steady kind of a pattern to it. Every year was different. And it seemed to me that the 4th of July parades, one year would be fabulous, and the next year, everybody was resting on their laurels and it wouldn't be quite as good. So everybody would say, well, last year was pretty poor. We got to do better next year. So there was this on-off cycle where you had a really great one and then a poor one, then a great one and so on like that. But the 4th of July was really a big deal around here. And I hope that we can get back to that. And in terms of John talking about overheating a car, one of Dad's Model A's. I never managed to do that myself, but I had a different problem one time. I was driving Dad's 35 Ford convertible sedan, and I was in front of the Captain Higgins restaurant. So I was 100 feet away from the end of the parade, and the car developed a vapor lock, and the motor stopped. The vapor lock, it doesn't happen in modern cars, but in the old cars, what happened is that the motor area got so hot that the gasoline in the fuel line turned to vapor instead of a liquid, and the car would stop. So they had to push me out of the way and then let the car sit for about 20 minutes until it cooled off enough for the gasoline to reconfigure as a liquid, and then the car started right up and I drove off. So, but I was so ticked off because I was literally 100 feet from the end of the parade. And, if I had gotten to the end of the parade, I could have accelerated the car and taken off at 30 miles an hour and cooled the motor off instead of it sitting there overheating and vapor locking. But that wasn't the worst, I guess. It could have been worse. But anyway, we did have a wonderful time as a family. We always had a nice big picnic during the daytime, waiting for the evening to come around and the wonderful fireworks display. And I have lots of memories.
That's amazing. Dan Silverman seems to also, he remembers the fireworks from Cannon Hill, and they had set a brush fire almost every year that the fire department had to extinguish. This is my 6th year here, and I think fireworks are no, you know, they stopped them pretty much about when I got here. And certainly no bonfires and things like that. And
It was pretty cool.
also Joe, and just so you know, we were in it, the library, because there were children's books was a theme, and I had asked Elaine McElroy, my predecessor, how do I be in the parade? She's like, get a flatbed truck and all the kids will sit in the back. And I said, I really don't think that's a thing anymore. So it's just fun to imagine what it must have used to be like when things like safety were different. Dan also said Joe Francis in the parade with his clam.
Oh, yes.
Now taken over by Paul Suggs, who also built the dory and fisherman on the former Lobster Hut, now Mac's Shack.
Yeah.
Gail Bell says, and they threw oysters. And then Dan says again, also the Little People of Long Pond, John Connor's wife's family, the Forrest family from Long Pond, and at least 3 generations of that family did that in the parade. And then Alex Brown wants to know, where were the bonfires?
Right on Mayo Beach.
That must have been great.
Yeah.
The most
highway
famous
department
one, I
set it
think,
up.
was the 1963, the 200th anniversary of town. And so they hired somebody to go out to the railroad tracks. The railroad had stopped, and they hired somebody to go out and pick up all the old railroad ties. And they made this huge, huge pile of railroad ties, and on the top, of course, was the outhouse. But that day, the wind was blowing toward Eastham, and railroad ties just burned forever and throw black smoke. And within a week, they had the selectman from Eastham had sent a letter to the Wellfleet selectmen saying, please don't do that again, because of the black smoke we sent to Eastham that day. That was 1963. And we do have pictures of that at the museum.
I remember that, now that you mention it. One of the things that happened in 1963 was they buried a time capsule in front of the town hall. And I believe George Pierce, I think his name was, one of the selectmen. And I was there when they were getting ready to put the capsule into the ground. And I said, I'd love to get a picture of this. Let me go get my camera. And so I raced home on my bike and came back with my camera, and they had already put it in the ground. And he noticed that I was there with my camera. He says, well, here, let me take it out. So he pulled it out for me and let me get a shot of it going back in. And when the town hall burnt down, Dad drove his coupe from our house down and parked it in front of what was then Nelson's Market, now the Wellfleet Market. And I remember running down there and sitting in his coupe, watching the whole thing the entire time that the fire was going on. It was quite the event. That was pretty something. But Dad told me that he didn't get to see much of that because when the chief got there, he asked Dad, and Dad was the first person there. He's asked Dad to take truck 9-2 down to Squires Pond and set up a pumping line. And so Dad spent the entire fire sitting at Squires Pond with the truck pumping water. And somebody who had a small Jeep with a snowplow was trying to keep the road open, thinking he was helping out. And every time he drove by up Main Street, he cut the hose, and they had to stop pumping and switch hoses, and they were running out of hoses because the guy kept hitting it. So finally they caught him and told him to stop plowing because he was hurting the effort. But I remember that very clearly. That was quite the trip, that one was. But I have lots of stories.
Yeah. Charlie, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I've only been in Wellfleet about 25 years, but one of the things that I remember in 1995, I believe it was, my wife and I were on the back porch. It was July 4th, it was the afternoon, and all of a sudden there was a huge explosion and all these fireworks going off, and my wife looked at me and she says, are they practicing for the fireworks? That's when the fireworks all blew up on the beach.
Wow.
You remember that?
They've got a great picture of that down at the Harbor Master's shack of the inadvertent 4th of July celebration fireworks in the middle of the day.
Well, it made the front page of the Boston Globe and also the New York Times, as I recall.
Wow. A lot of people are really enjoying these memories. My goodness.
Well, I had intended this to be an hour, and an hour is up. I really want to thank everybody who has shared these stories. I have a list here of prompts to help people remember things, and I didn't get to use one of them. I think there's a lot of memories of Wellfleet people would like to continue to share, and we will continue to do these on and off, first remotely, and then of course when we're able to get together again, we'll go back to the library and do them at the library. But what I do ask for is recommendations for topics. So if anybody has anything that they would like to talk about in the future, you know, I have plenty of ideas, but I'm sure that you do too. And just send them either to Jennifer or to myself at the museum. And we'll make sure that we'll let you know when the next ones come up, and we'll continue to reminisce about this wonderful town.
Start video.
Thank you so much. I think Dan wanted to say something real quick.
Yeah, just real quick, Jennifer, before everybody go. Oh, sorry, I was muted there. Before everybody goes, Dwight had mentioned town meeting in October. Let me just put on my moderator hat for a minute. Town meeting is going to be September 12th. The select board just voted last night. Town meeting is going to be Saturday, September 12th, starting at 10 in the morning. It's going to be on the ball field at the Wellfleet Elementary School. We'll be getting the word out about that, but while I've got a captive audience here, I'd like to let everybody know, and if you could pass that word to everybody you know. It's going to be a unique experience, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So September 12th, Saturday, 10 in the morning. Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Jennifer,
I appreciate that, Dan. Dan, is that weather dependent, or is that rain or shine?
Well, there's a rain date of Sunday, so we're not going to be able to tent the whole field. So essentially, it is weather dependent. But the 12th is the call date. That'll be the posted date, with 2 rain dates of Sunday the 13th and Monday the 14th. But I told everybody, pray to whoever or whatever you believe in, and we hope for good weather.
Yeah. And this is Wellfleet. We don't melt.
No, we don't.
This is great. I love, like I said at the beginning, this combination of telling stories and history is just such a great combination for us. And I think this was really wonderful. And I don't know, I'd love to do it again. I am going to look into this video situation. And I think, John, did you say you had the digitized version of the 2010 presentation?
I'm not sure what year it is, but it was 2 DVDs. I digitized them both. It's my father and Randy speaking. And yeah, I can definitely send it to you. I have your email address.
Okay, great. And for those of you that had trouble with my email address, please go on the library website, wellfleetlibrary.org. I think I put an extra L in Wellfleet in the RSVP for this. So I'm sorry about that. I'm whatever. It's curbside, whatever. I'm not even gonna get into it. It's been an adventure this summer, and a fun one. And we are doing curbside, by the way, and we have been circulating a lot of books, and we have hotspots for those of you who use our internet and are interested in that, and a lot to offer you. So check out our website. We also have digital resources, and We're trying as much as possible to do as much for you without opening the doors of our building. So we consider ourselves open, just in a different format.
Jennifer, if I might take a quick moment to say hello to Randy Bell. I've not seen Randy in something like 50 years, but he may recall that around 1970, I began digging in the mud at Uncle Tim's Bridge in Duck Creek with Russell Swart. I know that Randy and Paul Hendrickson spent some time in the mud as well, recovering Wellfleet's history. And I have fond memories of those days. And in fact, when I'm back in Wellfleet in a few more days, I hope to return to the mud to see if I can find some more artifacts, which ultimately will go to the Wellfleet Historical Society if they're interested in them. So hello, Randy.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you all. Thank you, Dwight, for bringing this to me 2 weeks ago.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Let's do it again.
Let's do it again.
Let's do it again.
I think that's a wrap.
Okay. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.